Welcome into this edition of the Kansas City Chiefs Report, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Happy to have you with us. It is our final game preview before this game gets started here in just a few hours from right now. And who better to give us our final preview than none other than Jesse Newell. You know him, you love him from the Kansas City Star, covering the Chiefs as he's done so for the last several years. Jesse and I go back a bit. We both used to cover KU. I was a student in Lawrence. Jesse was doing a great job with the Star and with the Capital Journal and the LJ World and all that. And now here he is a few years later covering the Chiefs. Jesse, quite the ride it's been now. You go from covering a national championship winning KU team to jumping on the Chiefs dynasty here.
Yeah, they just keep winning titles around that. So that place, it's crazy. I was on the KU beat in 22 when they won it, and then flipped over to the Chiefs beat, and they won in 23. They won in 24. They've got a chance at 25. I was trying to think like the last time on my beat that a team had lost. I think it's back in 2019 that I was there for. So, it's been quite a run, but obviously the Chiefs are on quite a run. And thanks to their coach, thanks to their quarterback, and we'll see how they do coming up in this game, coming up here.
Yeah, certainly so. Jesse, let's start with the matchup between these two teams. What stands out to you?
Yeah, I was going back through my preview a couple years ago at the Star for the Eagles and the Chiefs, and sort of looking at what I wrote, and it's very similar, I think, which is like if you're going position by position, if you're going matchup by matchup, there's a lot of reasons to like what the Eagles do and to think that they have the edge in certain factors, but you also look big picture and you pull back and you go, it's Andy Reid in the playoffs, and it's Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl in the biggest games where he's usually the best, and so I kind of reminded of that prediction where I was like, in the end, it's really hard to bank or count against these guys, but this is a different Eagles team. Obviously, Jalen Hurts played great in Super Bowl 57 against the Chiefs and did basically all he needed to do to win the game other than, his defense stopping the Chiefs. But Saquon Barkley could be a problem for the Chiefs. They had some problems stopping the run in the AFC Championship game against the Bills. That'll be something to watch. But, other than that, for this game, I think it comes down to those two guys. Andy Reid is so good with extra time, extra preparation, coming up with corn dog or Tom and Jerry or whatever it is to take advantage of your weaknesses. And then again, it's hard to bank against Patrick Mahomes in these games just because all the evidence we've seen from him lately is that these are the moments he really rises to.
You mentioned that game from a couple of years ago, and I remember going in, everybody was saying, hey, 1 through 53, the Eagles are the more talented roster, but the Chiefs have the advantage at head coach and quarterback. Now we fast forward to this game 2 years later. Do you think that's the same circumstance here?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself on the prediction. I got to use some different words to say the same thing. The Eagles were favored in that game by like 1.5. I think the Chiefs are favored by 1.5. I think some of this is like better fatigue to be like, I'm tired of betting against the Chiefs and seeing them, do this sort of thing. So I can see that flipping that way. Chiefs are probably the healthier team coming in, which we can't overlook that either. But yeah, I think that's part of this. And, you're looking defensively. I know my colleague Sam McDowell at the Star, we were kind of going over every week for the matchup or the preview, we go over, okay, what's some of the weaknesses you can pick at a certain defense? And we're looking, pulling up some advanced stats, and it's like the Eagles are elite in the short. They're elite on the left side. They're elite outside the numbers. They're elite deep. It's really hard to look at that and go, oh, the Chiefs can really exploit that sort of thing, except for the fact that, again, given enough time, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they normally come up with some stuff and spread the ball around enough schematically to figure out some things against a defense like that. But this is a really talented Eagles team, and they also commit to the run. I just don't see them I don't see them giving up on that factor. And the biggest reason for that, we talk about Saquon Barkley, which is he's not like the Chiefs run it. Like the Chiefs run it to get 6 yards every single time and try to continue to move the chains. They run it with Saquon Barkley because they think they're going to get 7, they're going to get 6, they're going to get 4, and then they're going to get the rest of the 80 on one carry. And so it's a really dangerous run game, and obviously something the Chiefs will have to be ready for going into this game. They've defended the run pretty well all year, except for that game, the AFC Championship game in the third quarter when the Bills ran it 16 of 17 times in that quarter. And really, we saw Chris Jones on NFL Film say they ran it down our throat at that moment.
Yeah.
So it's something to watch for in this game. The Chiefs will have to be ready for that. Obviously have to play with physicality and not let Saquon get loose because we've seen what happens when he does. He usually ends up in the end zone.
Yeah, the Chiefs ended the season with the 5th-ranked rushing defense in the NFL. And you mentioned that Bills game. The Bills got away from the run in that fourth quarter and set up that shootout back and forth between the Bills offense and the Chiefs offense with the passing game with each quarterback with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And the thing I keep coming back to, we know Saquon's good. We know they can run the football. If the Chiefs can find a way, like they did with the Bills, to get them away from the run game, that could do wonders for them.
It absolutely could. I mean, the one thing I do think is worth mentioning, I asked Trent McDuffie about this, the Chiefs cornerback. He said that he left Super Bowl 57 again. This was his first Super Bowl victory as a rookie, but he said he kind of had mixed emotions walking off the field because if you remember, like, A.J. Brown kind of mossed him in that game and went over the top of him in the end zone, and the defense felt like it didn't play well in that game where they won 38-35. So I think some of those defenders want to have a better showing and show the Eagles that they can do better than they did that last time. But, I mean, to your original point, I mean, this is potentially a game for the Chiefs. Like, one thing Jalen Hurts, we've seen over the course of time, the course of this season, is he holds on to the football. You know what I mean? He holds on to the football. We've seen him do that. He'll take sacks. Maybe he had some fluky interceptions early, which led to him kind of being a little bit more hesitant later on. But the Chiefs are really good at getting unblocked players and blitzing and doing that sort of thing. So that plays up. You hear the Chiefs talk about it all the time in the locker room. They say you have to earn third downs. You know what I mean? You have to earn getting a third and long so you can rush the passer. Well, the Chiefs have to earn their way to be able to blitz and potentially get to Jalen Hurts in a scenario where it's very favorable for them. So I agree with your point, which is, the Chiefs could have some advantages with pass defense going against Jalen Hurts and potentially trying to get him sped up or not sped up and sack the quarterback. But to do that, they have to stop number one. And I have to mention this, the 3 Super Bowl wins for Patrick Mahomes, he was down 10 points, was down 10 points, and was down 10 points. I don't think you want to get behind 10 points against this Eagles team where it'll be a lot more difficult to come back. Yeah,
and they came back from behind twice in that Bills game as well.
Yes.
Just this past week in the AFC Championship, so something to monitor there. Jesse Newell, the Kansas City Star, joining us here at the Chiefs Report as we look ahead to Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Jesse, a lot of talk about the battle in the trenches between these two sides. The Chiefs, of course, with having Joe Thuney at the left tackle spot, and they've seen progress, but the run game hasn't been where they liked. And the Eagles, meanwhile, with the injuries they've had to Dickerson and Juergens, those guys are expected to play and be fine, but something to monitor on both ends. What offensive line is going to get the job done? Who do you lean towards?
Probably the Eagles because of what they've done all season, but you're right. The Chiefs have really morphed what they've done late in the year because of that change, putting Joe Thuney at left tackle, Mike Kelly at left guard. Andy Reid's so good at playing up to his players' strengths, and I think part of that, too, is trying to make sure that some of the weaknesses aren't exposed as well. And so they don't run as well because their interior 3 now is hurt a little bit with Joe Thuney kicking out to the outside, but they've traded that for the quick passing game. And we've seen Xavier Worthy take a major leap forward. We've seen Patrick Mahomes decrease his time to throw and get those balls out quickly on time and make the correct reads on certain plays. And so, I mean, can the Chiefs run the football? I don't know. I mean, I know they'll have a motivated running back in Kareem Hunt, who is getting his first Super Bowl experience with the Chiefs after his redemption story, signing with the team this year. Kind of very interesting. He keeps joking that he was signed off the couch, but he literally was signed off the couch. Like, he didn't get to go to training camp 2 years in a row. He was trying to get an invite with his agent, and they couldn't link up with anybody. And finally, the Chiefs called him in September after the Isaiah Pacheco injury and say, we need a guy. And he comes in. He told me he was the workhorse back like 2 weeks in. And after the Saints game, he said the next morning he woke up and struggled to get out of bed. You know what I mean? Like, this guy really put his heart on the line, his body on the line for the Chiefs. He's going to be motivated to play in this game. How many holes there will be, I'm not so sure. The only thing I will say about the Chiefs is, as this has gone along, if you look at some of the grades out there, some of the measuring systems, Joe Thuney's gotten slightly better every single week at left tackle, and Mike Kelly's gotten slightly better every week at left guard. So if there's any game for them to come out and be better in the run game than they have been with that particular lineup, it could be this one just because of experience and those guys playing together a little bit more, whereas the first few games with that, it obviously was a work in progress.
I should have known you were a big Pro Football Focus guy with as much as you were in on KenPom years ago on the basketball front of things.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of numbers to look at. I'm not missing for numbers to look up some analytics and figure out some things with football.
Jesse Newell joining us for the Kansas City Stars. We're talking Super Bowl 59. And when we look at the receiver room for this Chiefs team, it seems like it's a different guy almost every week. Travis was great in the divisional round with over 117 yards in that game. Then you go to the AFC Championship game, and that was Xavier Worthy's day. If you had to point to one guy in this Super Bowl, who catches your attention of who's going to be potentially Mahomes' go-to target?
Well, I'll start with a cop-out, which is, if you look 2 weeks ago, the team that the Chiefs played in the Texans that had a really good secondary, really good defensive backs, only one receiver caught a pass in that game. That was Xavier Worthy. The Eagles have similar type of players there. And so it makes you a little worried, I think, if you're on the Chiefs side to say, hey, can these guys win one-on-one? We've seen a matchup like this previously. How do the Chiefs manage this sort of thing? But how they managed it in the past has been they've spread it out, and they've let the offense do it. They let Andy Reid do it. They've taken open space. You know what I mean? So I think if the Chiefs are rolling in this game, it's going to be one of those where Tom Brady is saying in the second quarter, Patrick Mahomes has completed 9 passes to 8 different guys. But to answer your original question, I still would not be surprised if it was Hollywood Brown. This is a guy that completely changed their offense when he came back late in the season from his shoulder injury, and he has opened things up in space. And the first 2 games they played him in the regular season, his target share was just through the roof.
Yeah.
But they remain super high on him. I mean, even going like to take a peek into the offseason, like he probably remains one of the free agent to be's that's most likely to sign with the Chiefs again, just because they love his skill set, they love how he meshes with Mahomes, and they love that he can run these routes at both the intermediate and deep level, also tracks the ball really well. So I'll go with Hollywood Brown in this one. Something else to keep in mind for this particular matchup is that I asked Patrick Mahomes what his favorite throw of Super Bowl 58 was, not including the throw to McCole Hardman. I mean, if you win the Super Bowl, obviously, that's going to be one.
Sure.
But he actually told me it was the deep throw to McCole Hardman in the first quarter to make the 49ers defense at least think about, we might throw the ball deep.
Yeah.
And so he thought that was a big deal. The Chiefs are not known for that this year. We know that they are really low on every explosive play measure. But something to keep in the back of your mind, I bet they take a shot early, because that was important to Mahomes basically to tell the defense, you can't have everybody rush up. You can't have everybody rush to the ball immediately. We have to make you at least think we might go deep. So I would not be surprised at all if the Chiefs take a shot downfield. And I'm telling you right now, out of training camp, from being there in St. Joseph, Missouri, all those hot and sweaty days, his favorite target down the field, Xavier Worthy was one of them, but Hollywood Brown was the number one guy. So just look for that. That's something to watch for in this one. Again, they love Hollywood Brown. They love the skill set he provides. But I think if they're rolling like they want to, it will be a mixed effort with those guys. And Mahomes doing what he normally does, which is just finding the open guy. But if Hollywood Brown has a big game, I would not be surprised at that at all.
The defensive side of the ball, obviously we talked a lot about stopping the run. That's the number one priority. But what position group in particular catches your eye? Who do you think needs to potentially step up and hold their own here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is sort of obvious, but, like, I think Trent McDuffie's huge for the Chiefs. Like, he's been their one rock on the outside and an all-pro type player 2 years in a row. But we know his limitations. Like, the reason he was the 21st pick for the Chiefs instead of the 4th pick overall is that he doesn't have great size. You know, he's not built with the size that you get for a top 5 pick. And so that presents some problems outside the numbers. That presents some problems against A.J. Brown. There has been games this year where he's taken over. And, I mean, it doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. He's not a big interception guy. But there's been games where you have seen Trent McDuffie trail a guy across the formation, knock it away at the last second, and you're like, this guy is playing as good as any defensive player on the Chiefs, and that's a defense that includes Chris Jones. So I would start with him just because if he has one of his Trent McDuffie games, that takes away a lot of what the Eagles can potentially do. But, you know, you're talking about a no-stats all-star again, and people are taking note of what he does just because he's done it for so long. Chris Jones didn't do much in that Eagles game in Super Bowl 57, and he has the potential to do a whole lot.
He still only has like 3.5 postseason sacks in his whole career.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you look at his sack total for this year is way down. We want to go Pro Football Focus. His grade is way up. I mean, he always takes the double teams. He's always creating pressures. Sometimes it's resulting in other guys, getting more opportunities. But this is a game. I mean, listen, he knows the reality of this. We know the reality. It's like, this is a game to step up. And if you were talking about Trent McDuffie being motivated by a game he didn't play very well against the Eagles 2 years ago, I think you have to talk about Chris Jones as well, because when the Chiefs defense did not play well in that particular game, and they didn't play well in that particular season, a lot of times it was with the games that Chris Jones wasn't doing what he normally does for the Chiefs. This year he's been way more consistent with the pressures and everything. I'd expect a better game from him, but that's why the offensive line, like 4 guys can do their job, but if Chris Jones beats one of them, you kill the play. And so many times in the Super Bowl, we saw it last year against the 49ers as well. Sometimes Chris Jones just kills the play. And if he can do that a couple times for the Chiefs, it might give them the sort of edge that they need in this game.
Yeah, potentially so. Talking to players and the coaches this week, it seems like that this team is very relaxed. They know the routine. They've been here, done that before. And all this talk about three-peat and all this, I've been very impressed with just how they're carrying themselves. That this team is not in awe about that. They don't seem distracted. Like Andy has this team seem very locked in, very focused in. Has that been kind of your takeaways too from talking to these guys this week?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. Like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? it's one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Like Andy Reid, everybody talks about this, and Clark Hunt even talked about this earlier this week. The Chiefs owner, CEO, chairman, had talked about they, as a front office or as an organization, have been able to look forward to this week for a long time.
Yeah.
But if Andy had let his players do that, they wouldn't be here.
Right.
What Andy's all about is just today. You know what I mean? He has a process of this thing. Like every single day of the calendar year, you do something. And if you're at training camp and it's July 24th, this day, this is what you get better at. You get better at RPOs. You get better at run blocking. You get whatever it is, but you get that 1% better that day, and then you move on to the next day. And that just allows everything to just compress. You're not thinking three-peat. You're not thinking historical significance. You're thinking, did I get a little bit better today? If I did, that'd be okay. And, just to let you some insight, they choose a word of the year every single year, and the Chiefs' words basically this year were the formula.
Yeah.
Andy Reid has this formula down. It's the last two words you see if you're a Chiefs player going out the tunnel, out of the locker room, up into the field. You see the formula. And so really I think that's what so much of the success is, that Andy has been steady, but he also does have this formula down, which is like, let's not focus on all that stuff. And players have even said they haven't heard a three-peat come out of his mouth other than when he's been asked media questions. But if you just keep today in mind and what can you do today to get better, then you're going to improve and you're going to put yourself in position to be in the running to win another Super Bowl. And that's really what they've been all year. And I think it's because of their leader that they've been able to stay steady and not let this whole moment and potential, the ramifications of history, get to them on this particular season.
All right, last question before we wrap up here. Jesse, who wins? What's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because I feel the same way I did 2 years ago. Like, I could easily talk myself into saying the Eagles are better here. They probably are going to run the ball effectively. If they do so, not many possessions in this game. The Chiefs are used to low possession games, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes, and they have a bunch of plays that they go to, 12-play, 14-play drives, those sorts of things. And then defensively, you can look at the Eagles and say, oh, my gosh, how do you pass against them? How do you do anything against them because of how strong they've been all season? But it's sort of like last week when I did the prediction for the Kansas City Star where Patrick Mahomes didn't play that well against the Houston Texans the week before. And it's like, how can I expect him to not play amazing in this game?
Sure.
And sure enough, he had his best game of the year. It's like, how can you go into this and doubt this guy when all the evidence so far says that he is just a big game guy? And so you add that to, like, what is this year's corn dog? What is this year's Tom and Jerry? What is that play that the Chiefs found on film 2 weeks ago that they implemented? And what is it going to be this year? Because every time they win the Super Bowl, they just pull out something the other team is not expecting. You add things together, I think you give the Chiefs a slight edge. So I'll be picking the Chiefs, in this particular game. But again, it should be a good one. It should be a competitive Super Bowl. I think the sports betting line tells us that as much. Tells us that as well.
Jesse, where can people find your work and see all the Super Bowl coverage? Even when this game ends, there's plenty more ahead in the offseason.
We'll have lots of stories tonight for sure. KansasCity.com is where the Kansas City Star stuff. At Twitter at Jesse Newell, and a lot of things to cover, and we'll see if history will be made later tonight.
He's Jesse Newell joining us here from Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Jesse, a pleasure. Thanks for doing this, man, and we'll talk in down the line.
I appreciate you having me.
That is Jesse Newell. Thanks for joining us. We'll have continuing coverage here, Super Bowl 59, right here on the Kansas City Chiefs Report.